Hi, I'm Alex.
I'm Robbie.
And this is Combat Thoughts.
We take a deeper look at the culture and philosophy behind martial arts. Hello and welcome to a little extra mini episode of Combat Thoughts. So I don't think I'm a very goal-motivated person when it comes to Ju-Jitsu. By that I mean, I've never really considered myself a viable candidate to be a world champion, for example. With fighting, it's sort of a similar principle. I hear fighters talking all the time, you shouldn't be getting into this sport unless you expect to be the champion, unless you want to be the best on the planet. I really disagree with that. I do not expect to be the best in the world. I expect there's a reasonable chance that if I carry on fighting for 5 or 6 more, I could reasonably lose one. And even then, I don't expect to carry on a long time after that. So how would I ever become a world champion in that regard? No, the ultimate goal of becoming a world champion in either sport is really not what drives me. It was in a recent podcast I was doing with Mike that will be coming out in a few weeks' time, and he was talking about he's finding it very hard to stay motivated without a specific competition in mind. For him, it was ADCC, and since then, now that we're in lockdown, he can't train, he can't work for those specific competitions. He's finding it hard to stay motivated and keep himself consistently training. I've not found myself falling off the wagon. I mean, I find it easier to train hard when you've got that next goal in mind, but I've definitely kept up consistent training of one sort or another. I've definitely been active mentally, like watching fights, going over DVDs for technique, and generally thinking about the sport, especially in relation to this podcast. So I was having a think about it, and it's clearly not that ultimate goal of winning the competition that's motivating me at the moment. Don't get me wrong, if I'm entering a competition, I'm entering with the intention to win it. I'm never going to enter a fight not thinking that I can and that I will come out of it victorious. Every competition I enter, I'm there trying to get gold. I'm not just entering just to show my face and just for the sake of it. And I think part of BJJ moving towards a sport rather than martial art has given people a different view on this. It's been something I think about, that martial arts never used to be about just winning, or at least that's not the story we're told. The story we're told is that they're all about development and growth, and I think that's much more of a motivating factor for me. The whole pushing yourself to find the limit, the whole training something diligently and going over it again and again. It's about developing as a person and as a martial artist. The goal there has never been about purely being victorious in competition. And I think that's why I'd never consider myself a prize fighter, even if I am, now and then a cage fighter. No, me winning the competitions is a means rather than an end. The competitions are a way to test how effective I actually am. They are a way to motivate myself a bit extra, to push harder. But the lessons I learn aren't just from having that competition in mind. It was before one of my fights that I remember saying to someone that, win or lose, I've come out of this a far better martial artist than I did going into the camp. Like, those few weeks were extremely constructive for me and were a brilliant way for me to develop my skills. The fact that I didn't know if I was going to win or lose didn't change that. It's about that development period at the start. If I'm honest, I think this is more of a more effective long-term motivating factor. If all you're motivated by is hitting those specific goals, then what happens when you miss them? what happens when you fail? I mean, I think that's why some people can be so crushed by being defeated in competition, and that can be really disheartening for a lot of people. I think the fact that I'm more motivated towards growing and developing means that if I do lose, that win or learn mentality is much more effective. I'm not just learning how to win next time. I'm, learning something about how I react to losses and maybe how I need to change myself in the future, whether that's to do with martial arts or otherwise. And I guess that's why over lockdown I've been able to stay more motivated to do other things, do this podcast, talk to people, research the sport and the martial arts in more detail. It's because the idea for me is to grow as a martial artist and as a person, rather than just be a better competitor and being a better, winning more, I guess. I think that it's also interesting that, back in the day, without this global view and these world champions, you'd never know if you were the greatest in the area. All you'd know is, you'd know if you're the greatest in the area. You never know if you're the greatest in the world. Until the communication revolution, there was always that unknown. You could always be bested by someone else, someone from elsewhere in the world. And I think for that reason, I don't feel like it's necessary for me to be better than everyone else. If people 200 years ago were happy to develop and be as good as they could be in the local area, then why shouldn't I? It's also why I'm not purely determined to stay within my own weight class, because again, it's to do with the fact that we've moved towards more of a sport setting rather than a martial arts setting with our practices. Weight classes never used to be a thing, and I want to be as strong as possible, whether that keeps me in my weight class or not. That's a form of development. I'm not saying it's the most deep and meaningful development that I can possibly undergo, but it is kind of important that I do it all the same. It's also made me think about what my goals are going to be after I get through lockdown. A lot of people use Ju-Jitsu to move towards teaching and having a school, and I don't know if that's necessarily my goal, but I think that having a community and a group of people who you can talk to and who you'd consider a second family is a far more important aspect to me than competition. I will continue to compete, but it's not the ultimate goal for me. So yeah, excusing the clickbaity title of this piece, I guess that's why I don't want to be a champion. It's not to say that that if I enter a competition I don't want to be the champion there, but being a champion isn't the thing that motivates me, and it's not the thing that drives me. I think I'm a far more a growth-motivated person rather than a goal-motivated person. And for that reason, I see competition as a means and not an end. And I'd be interested to see where I can get in the sport, whether that means excelling in competition or not.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, please consider subscribing to the podcast and checking us out on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram under the name Combat Thoughts. We'll see you next time.